liftoff and the clock has started.
Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Tesla Time podcast. On this week's episode, we'll be sharing everything you can expect from the show going forward, as well as jumping into the latest and greatest Tesla news, and most importantly, the latest Tesla UK related news, as we say hello to Tesla Time, but goodbye to the Plaid Plus. This is the first one, and I am, I'm super excited. This is going to be great. It's that time again. It's Tesla time. Okay, it's Tesla time. Just kind of came out then. I don't know why I said that. It makes me feel a little bit sick. Very cheesy. I apologise. I will probably cut that. So, welcome to the first episode. And this one's going to go a little bit differently because what I want to do first of all is obviously introduce you to the show. I think the best way to kind of carve this up is I'm going to do a bit of a who, what, where, when and why. Okay, so let's rattle through this. So of course this is a podcast all about Tesla, and each episode's going to kick off with, the big weekly worldwide Tesla headlines, the ones that you just can't afford to miss. But then we'll delve into the UK specific Tesla headlines. This could be related to, UK announcements, UK releases, UK charging and supercharging, the British road network, anything Tesla related that affects us, the British people, those strange individuals that drive on the left. In terms of the when and where, so the show will be released, I'm hoping to do it once a week, and I'm going to try and keep it to a maximum of 30 minutes. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but also I want the show to be kind of short, sharp and punchy, giving you kind of all the information you need, all in one place. I will offer some of my opinions on certain things that happen in the world of Tesla, but on the whole, it's going to be short, sharp and punchy. In terms of the where, I'll be making sure that this show is released on, all the platforms so you can listen whenever and wherever you like. So that's the what, the when, the where. What else? We've got the who. Okay, so who is this for? Well, of course, everyone is welcome, but I guess the show is designed for four main groups of people. The first group is what I call the Tesla OGs. If you're older than a millennial, then OG stands for original gangster. I think it's like a street term. So these are the people that took the jump into Tesla first. And I actually wasn't one of these individuals because unfortunately my finances wouldn't allow me to be. But I salute the OGs hugely because what these people did is they took a risk by investing in a product that from a company that was trying to do something different, trying to do something incredible, trying to push the boundaries. So Tesla OGs, you are more than welcome for sure. The second group, very simply, is new Tesla owners, of course, just like me. The third group, but also, very important as well, is people who might not necessarily be Tesla owners, but have a passion for all things Tesla and perhaps a passion for technology and hope to become owners one day. Maybe this podcast can help fill the gap between you either saving or waiting for the right time. I remember I had quite a big gap and it seemed to go on forever, but eventually we got there, so that's great. And then finally, EV fans. Maybe you're not a Tesla fan, but you're interested in purchasing your first EV, or you've got an EV that you love. One of Tesla's main aims is to drive electrification of the automotive industry. So the more evolution that we're seeing from the competition, the better. We're seeing this massively in the UK for Hyundai. In the US, the Ford F-150 recently dropped, which, is pushing the boundaries as well. So a massively warm welcome to you EV fans. We want to be seeing the market grow and frankly get better because we all benefit from that. Everyone can get involved. The email address for the show is teslatimepodcast@gmail.com. And at the end of each show, once I've got a listener, to be honest with you, I'd like to do some sort of community section, where you, the listener, can get involved, whether that be with a question or talk topic, wherever it might be. I kind of want to leave it open for now because I want the community to decide what this looks like in the future. But to be honest with you, one of the best things about Tesla and the reason why I'm so into them is the community itself. The awesome people that you get to meet at superchargers, to the people who are so generous with their time and help on the owners forums, or even, the little waves that we Tesla owners give one another on the roads. It's brilliant. Like, it makes me cringe a little bit, but I just can't help it. Like, if I see a Tesla Model 3, which is what I drive, they're getting a wave from me every day. Like, and sometimes they look at me like I'm crazy, and sometimes I get a wave back, and it really cheers up my day. So, yeah, anyway, the community's great, so I want to dedicate some time from the 30-minute show each week to the community, hearing your questions or talk topics. And finally, the why. You know, why am I doing this? I mean, I've followed Tesla now for several years. I've been a huge fan of Tesla, but you know what? As it's a US headquartered company, and of course, therefore, a lot of the news that comes out from the company is kind of pushed to us through a US sphere. I kind of feel like there was a space for a UK take on things, on all things Tesla. You know, we are seeing Tesla demand, supply, and sales in the UK rocket. And I think the company's performance here in Blighty is only going to improve. And when I say company's performance, I mean that figuratively and literally, in fact. Now, there is a lot of Tesla material out there, from YouTube channels to podcasts to forums, and I encourage you to keep listening to those. In fact, let me shout out my favourite. The Ride the Lightning show that Ryan McCaffrey hosts every week is my favourite podcast, full stop. Ryan does an incredible job on that show. So if you haven't checked it out already, please go check that out. If you are listening to Ride the Lightning, continue to listen because it's awesome. But over here on Tesla Time, it's going to be more of a UK focus. So that's the who, what, where, when, and why. Let me just quickly introduce myself. I'll just spend 30 seconds on this because there's nothing worse than hearing someone, some random guy talk about himself. But I think it's important for you to understand kind of who's in your ear. So my name's Joe. I've had a keen interest for technology for a very, very long time. And in fact, my day job is in the technology industry. And actually, that might be worth pointing out that this is a hobby for me. This podcast is, it's an extracurricular activity, if you will. So I'm doing this in the evenings after work. I live in the south coast of England. I'm a long-time Tesla fan, of course, but from a distance. I've followed the company for several years, but at the start of this year in March, I was lucky enough to pick up my brand new Tesla Model 3 long range, and it was genuinely life-changing. I know that sounds melodramatic, and some people I speak to, they just don't get it. But honestly, it's like being sat in the future of how the automotive industry must and will become, finding the boundaries between cars and technology and blurring the line between the two, and being able to sit in the future and say, this is mine. Like, it was insane. And I'd built up, you got to remember, I'd built up to this, following the company so long, it was all set up to be, a massive damp squib. But I'm really pleased to say it wasn't. There's nothing worse than looking forward to a film and then you finally go and get tickets to go and see it, and it's like, and it really wasn't that. It lived up to all my expectations. So enough so that I'm doing a podcast all about Tesla, which is crazy in itself. Anyway, that's enough about me. That's it for the intro. I'm only obviously going to do that once. From now on, we'll go straight in from the intro. We'll go straight into the news. And let's do that now for the very first time, episode 1 of the Tesla Time podcast. Let's go for it. Let's begin Tesla Time, the unofficial UK Tesla podcast. So of course this week's launch event of the Tesla Model S Plaid will make up the bulk of the headlines this week. But before we jump into that, we must touch on the episode title heading. The Tesla Model S Plaid Plus has been cancelled. So this news broke all over the globe as it was announced that the 1084 brake horsepower range topper, I think of around 500 plus miles, has now been scrapped. How was it announced? Well, if like me, you've been following Tesla, you'll probably have guessed it. It was, announced via a casual throwaway tweet by the man himself, Elon Musk. So Elon Musk took to Twitter on the 6th of June to say, and I quote, "Plaid Plus is cancelled. No need, as Plaid is just so good," end quote. So this isn't the first time that we've seen Tesla do something like this, and it certainly won't be the last. In fact, last week we had the whole Lombard support debacle. Although that didn't get an Elon Twitter announcement, it did get an Elon Twitter admission. New Model 3 and Model Y owners actually noticed it in their own cars as they picked them up. that the front passenger side lumbar support button had been replaced by effectively a plastic blanking plate. Elon received lots of messages on Twitter with pictures of this, and he actually responded to say that, according to the data that they'd captured, it's not getting used enough to warrant the cost of the part. And that might be true, and I don't really want to get into this now, but to pull this with no warning is perhaps a concern. And again, a slight negative to the fact that Tesla do not have a marketing department, right? They don't have a PR department. They don't have anyone that, the media, there's no one that I can contact for comment on anything, because, those email addresses just do not exist. Those departments do not exist. So, it's okay in terms of selling and marketing their vehicles with this kind of word of mouth strategy that they have. However, when it comes to kind of quelling concerns around things like this, they don't necessarily have that function. So anyway, that's a whole other thing. Those of you long-time fans of Tesla might remember that at the end of last year, a very similar thing happened to the Model Y Standard Range Plus in the US. This car was effectively on the shelf for 2 weeks, I think, and was then pulled off. Elon announced this on Twitter with a tweet to say, back in December, Model Y Standard Range Plus off the menu as range is not acceptable. So, they will do things like this. They'll announce things and then they'll just pull it, and it will never see the light of day. That's just the fun of following Tesla, I guess. But in regards to this week's story around the Model S Plaid Plus, why have they pulled this? So this car was originally expected to start arriving on our roads late 2022. So, a little while away. So it's not like, anyone had it and, now it's no longer supported or anything. It's more a case of people had reserved thousands had reserved these. And by the way, their reservations are now being ported over to the Model S Plaid with an option to cancel and refund their £100 deposit. But anyway, why has this happened? So, the pessimists could say, is it due to part shortages? Is it due to chip delays, battery production issues? I don't know. I'm kind of, perhaps I'm too optimistic here, but he might be telling the truth, The Model S Plaid is just so good. And at the Model S Plaid event on the 10th of June, Elon actually expressed that they are truly operating at the very edge of physics, right? So, you're not just dealing with how can we make these cars, better, from, including more technology or whatever. It's literally breaking physics now. That's this crazy kind of performance of these cars. And perhaps this Model S Plaid is really a killer, and we'll know that for sure when customers get their hands on them. But don't forget, the Plaid is pitching numbers that are in line with the original specifications of the next-gen Roadster. That was announced almost 3 years ago now. I remember the whole 1.9 second 0 to 60 was mind-blowing, right? And that was for the Roadster, which is like, it looks like a supercar. And, even that was incredible. 1.99 seconds is being hit by the Model S Plaid. And this is a 5-door family saloon. This is like, if you haven't seen it, it's like think of it as like a BMW 5 Series, right? This is a big family car going faster than any other. It's crazy. But anyway, maybe the gap between, if you line them up, the Model S Plaid, the Model S Plaid Plus and the next gen Roadster, maybe the gaps between those cars just weren't defined enough to make sense, and put maybe the range of vehicles in disrepute a little bit. And range is also important, right? Elon's touched on this earlier in the year, when he said on the Joe Rogan podcast, when it comes to range, I think they were talking about the range on the Cybertruck, but he actually says, like, well, what do you actually want? ICE cars, internal combustion engine vehicles, could carry 1,000, 2,000 mile fuel tank, but they don't, because naturally over time what's happened is a balance has been struck that weighs up the benefits and disadvantages of the range of your petrol fuel tank, right? So, carrying 1,000 mile petrol tank in an ICE vehicle is, going to be great in terms of you only have to fill up once in a blue moon. But it's going to have a degradation effect to the car's functionality, its feel, its efficiency. It's going to be weighed down, and it's going to cost you a fortune to fill up as well. And, that just doesn't feel right. And it's kind of the same with batteries, right? The Model S Plaid has a 400-mile range, and the Plaid Plus was set to have a 500-plus mile range. And you kind of go, well, do we actually need that range? I think a lot of, if you're in a Tesla car, you'll kind of know what I'm talking about here. But you're carrying around a heavier battery pack. The battery, by the way, in these cars are, it wasn't looking like, well, it's not going to be 3680 cells. So the battery is effectively a cargo. You are carrying around a 500 plus mile range battery, and when are you ever going to actually use that? Very, very rarely. And that extra 100 miles is only going to get you to the next, if you're on a really long road trip, it's only going to get you to the next supercharger anyway, so you might as well be at the the nearer one. It doesn't really make too much sense in my mind. And on top of that, these cars, it was announced on June the 10th event that these cars are going to fill up. The Model S Plaid is going to fill up at 187 miles in just 15 minutes. So, even charging becomes almost, irrelevant as well. So to carry a bigger and heavier, more expensive battery for an additional 100-mile range, which you'll rarely use, seems unnecessary. And like I say, the performance is at the edge of physics. So we weren't going to see huge shifts there. So, perhaps it didn't make sense. The Plaid Plus was set for, what did I say? A later 2022 release, but was up for pre-orders. So Tesla have been, I've heard in the communities that Tesla have been reaching out to their reservation holders and kind of offering the Plaid. Elsewhere in the world of Tesla, we had of course, this launch event, which I've already mentioned, of the Tesla Model S Plaid. It was about a 30-minute event. I think the general consensus online is, the vehicle, the vehicle that it was there to announce is incredible. And I think everyone is starting to fall in love with this car, and rightly so, and we'll get into that. There is kind of a feeling of like, Tesla don't host many events. They usually have, one or two big events a year, and then they have the quarterly reviews to their shareholders. But so when there is an event, it's kind of this feeling of like, is there going to be a one more thing? And there wasn't, to be honest with you. They gave us exactly what they said they would, and there was no real surprises. So, let me hit you with some numbers on this Model S Plaid. So whilst I'm saying these, just remember, 5-door, 5-seater, spacious saloon car, okay? So 0 to 60 in 1.99 seconds, 9.23 second quarter mile. That is bonkers. A 390 mile range on the performance model, 420 on the long range, 200 mile an hour top speed. But here's the thing with this one, without a drop in horsepower all the way up to the 200 mile an hour. So, I mean, that's just staggering. All cars have a drop off, as the torque starts to drop off at the higher end. This does not, so that's insane. This is the quickest production car ever, and it's knocking the $3 million Bugatti from its perch. So this is a £150,000 eco-friendly 5-door family saloon nudging a $3 million hypercar out the way. It's just crazy. But for me, with this car, it's all about that interior. Oh God, the interior looks so good. If you haven't seen it, check it out online. Now, I'm a technology fan at heart, and it's the interior that just blows me away. So inside you've got obviously the yoke steering wheel, which is kind of like an F1 steering wheel. It doesn't have that top arm over the top. I love the look of it, but in terms of practicality, we need to see some more hands-on detail. Tesla's argument here is, your view of the road and that kind of the screen that's in front of the driver, which you don't actually get in the 3 and the Y. It just helps with kind of your vision and the feel of the car. And also, I guess, hopefully relatively soon, as we see FSD roll out, full self-driving package start to roll out worldwide, the steering wheel is going to become more and more redundant. They've done away with the traditional kind of gear stick and introduced a technology they're referring to as auto shift. Okay, so this is where the car uses cameras and advanced AI to intelligently understand whether or not the driver wants to go into drive or reverse. Again, this is definitely something we need to see in people's hands. There is the screenshots that have been leaked online. There is a little dial on the screen itself that you can do it manually. But Elon kind of referred to this and said, as you kind of keep parking in your driveway and reversing off your driveway and doing whatever you do on a day-to-day basis, you know, the car is going to learn where you are. It's going to geotag it using the sat nav, you know. So there's going to be some, you know, it's going to get better and better over time, like many things Tesla related. A massive 17-inch screen, which looks unbelievable. This has 10 teraflops of horsepower behind it, so the screen is almost as powerful as the performance of the car. It's being billed as a PS5 level performance, and Elon raises a good point here. You know, again, when that autonomy arrives in the form of true FSD, the entertainment and infotainment within the vehicle is going to be, you know, even more important to the ride experience. So this much power really does make sense. And they actually flexed their muscles a little bit here, and they played Cyberpunk live at the event. You know, they only played it for about a minute or so. And it looked gorgeous, running at 60 frames a second, which is just mind-boggling. What else have we got? Wireless charging, like in the 3 and the Ys, which looks great. Ventilated seats, 22 speakers, Tesla acoustic glass, easy for you to say. I mean, it's incredible. You know, it really is incredible. Then in the back, we have a second screen, which has its own controls and can either mirror the entertainment going on in the front infotainment screen, or it can be controlled separately and have its own entertainment going on in the back. So if you've got the kids in the back, you can stick on cartoons or games, which is awesome. And multiple Bluetooth devices was briefly mentioned by Elon, which I think is actually really important. And this is going to be an overlooked online, because it looks like you're going to be able to have multiple, you know, game controllers or multiple Bluetooth headphones synced to different screens in the vehicle. So those in the rear can be doing something and listening to something, whilst those in the front can be, you know, doing something else and listening to something else, whether that be in park, at a supercharger, for example, or it's going to be, you know, whilst you're driving. But do you know what? This car, honestly, it looks insane. If you haven't checked it out, go onto Tesla's YouTube channel and check out the live stream, which is up now. I mean, every time we get a new car from Tesla, it's a personal attack on the gas-powered car. And Elon actually said it on stage. You know, once the Model S Plaid is out in the wild, it's the end of the debate, right? There is no more category where EVs are not better. You know, whether that be performance, efficiency, technology, capability, environmentally, there's literally no category where the EV loses. It really is incredible. Switching over to UK-based headlines. So, let's talk about Blighty. So, a big headline coming in here this week, which actually drove me to get the first episode out and actually get this podcast off the floor. And that is that the Model 3 has now become the highest selling electric vehicle in the UK, leaping the Leaf, if you will. So I spotted this story on The Guardian, so shout out to The Guardian, which says the number of Model 3s on British roads overtook Nissan's Leaf models during the first 4 months of 2021, according to calculations by Matthias Schmidt, an independent electric car analyst. There are now 39,900 Model 3s in the UK, compared to 38,900 Leafs, many of which are built at Nissan's factory in Sunderland. The article actually goes on to say in April, the Model 3 population remained slightly behind the most popular plug-in hybrid, the Mitsubishi Outlander, but the Tesla is expected within months to become the most popular car that can recharge from a plug. Now, you know, end quote. This here is huge, right? I'm going to kind of reserve judgment on the hybrid debate right now. I mean, it's only the first episode, and I don't want to be too controversial on, you know, the first day at work. But no matter what your view, as a Tesla fan, we need to be seeing the transition from hybrid. Well, we need to be seeing the transition from ICE to hybrid to full EV increasing, right? And this news story not only shows this, but also represents the impact that Tesla are having on this sea change on our British roads. I actually went to a Tesla dealership last weekend. I had a service appointment there, And by the way, experience was incredible. And I actually started speaking to the Tesla employee there. He was explaining to me that their job is not a sales role, because I said to him, selling Teslas, I mean, that is selling, water in the desert, right? That is the easiest job in the world. And he said it's actually not really a sales role. So, that anyone that works at a Tesla dealership, they're not on any quotas, they're not on any commissions. They do not care if you buy it online with them or at another dealership. It doesn't affect them. But what Mike, his name was, so shout out to Mike at the Guildford Tesla Centre. Instead, what Mike was saying is their role is more kind of quelling people's fears of EVs. And it really is the fear of the unknown. But he said to me that the more we sell, the more we sell. And do you know what? That is so true. The more people become comfortable with seeing EVs on the road, the more people become comfortable in investing in one. And of course, the main issue and concern is range. I think more and more people are starting to understand that, performance and little things like, how quiet and calm it is to drive an electric vehicle, not having that internal combustion engine, right by your toes. People are starting to understand that is better. So it is just range. And people just want to have that peace of mind of, having a petrol station every 3 miles, 3 miles away from wherever they go. So, it's all about quelling that concern, and Tesla seem to be doing a great job as we see Model 3s growing and growing. And that about does it for this week's episode of the Tesla Time podcast. Obviously, this one's a little bit different because we had that intro, and that won't normally happen. We'll be able to get into a lot more juicy news and gossip and all things Tesla starting from next week. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be bringing you more and more news as the weeks go on. And who knows, by the way, next week we might have real-world hands-on thoughts and opinions on the Tesla Model S Plaid, which is, super exciting. I've absolutely loved doing this, but the show is malleable, so let me know what you think. Feel free to contact me with your questions and comments at teslatimepodcast@gmail.com. But for now, that's it, folks. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you.